Hi, my name is Georgia Basin, and this is the Flow of Life community. And here with me today is the most wonderful Rohini. And we've had a little natter before we've started, and I've had to keep saying, "Oh, I can't do that yet. I haven't pressed record." So, hi, Rohini, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and I'm wonderful. Thank you.
Well, Rohini did the most beautiful 6 weeks. It was 6 weeks, wasn't it?
It was.
Over the summer, which was about rewilding yourself, because of course it runs the Rewilders program, which is for coaches, and you do one-to-ones with Angus, with people, with couples. And I mean, you're prolific as a writer and as a creator. But it was so fascinating in the summer because you, as a teacher, were so open, honest, forthright, revealing of yourself, which was really such a whole new flavor. Because we talk about our teachings, our learnings, and we talk about SAID, but so often our personal shit doesn't come into it, if you'd excuse my language. But it kind of is true. And you really opened up that space of revealing yourself through being totally open. Because it's really easy to kind of get so caught up in the spiritual side of stuff that, and this was a big thing that I saw, our humanness is beautiful too.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And was there one particular moment that you saw that, or was it just, you've just always known this?
No, I have not always known that. I wish I had always known that. No. And it still continues to reveal itself to me. But I think that the one particular moment that jumps to mind in terms of where I saw that more deeply was when I was really deeply impacted by the understanding of Sydney Banks in a way that I heard it and it penetrated my conditioning and my misunderstandings about who I was. And in that moment, what was being said to me was, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not less than because you have anxiety. This is just a normal part of the human experience. But I heard it in a really profound way, or I felt it in a really profound way, where I actually felt that I wasn't broken. I realized that there was nothing wrong with me, even though I have insecurity, even though I have anxiety, even though I have the full range of human experience. But for whatever reason, I glommed onto my insecurity as the thing that I needed to fix about myself, the thing that was getting in the way of me having the life experience that I wanted to have, being able to do the things that I wanted to do. And so when I realized that I had just been spending so much time in the misunderstanding and judgment of myself as having something wrong with me, and that I needed to fix myself, and that actually was what was causing the suffering. And that actually was what was creating the problems, that actually my human experience, if it included insecurity or anxiety, was not actually a problem at all. I was the one that was making it into a problem. That was like a, oh my goodness moment where I'm like, I can't believe it. I didn't see this before. But as you know, once you see something like that, you just get changed from that. And so that for me was where I really opened up to my humanity in a deeper way and could see that it was through opening, being with experience, opening to experience, being with experience, that is what allowed me to have a deeper connection with the experience of my true nature. That it was not through fixing my experience, it was not through improving my human experience, it's not through avoiding my human experience, it was through actually embracing it, which was very different for me. I spent so much of my life and doing all of the other categories.
Mm.
And so to see that, oh, the simplicity of just being with and the capacity to have an open heart with myself, with whatever my human experience might be, that's the natural byproduct of not judging my human experience. If I'm not judging it, then I can simply be with it. And what's there, if I'm not in judgment, is love. And how healing that was and how liberating that was. So that was a big light bulb moment that just continues to deepen and unfold and reveal itself to me as life unfolds.
Well, I mean, I know I really heard it differently from you in the summer.
Mm.
And I know how much time well, I don't know how much time, but I know how much stuff comes out into the world from you, if I call it product for lack of a better description, because I can't think of another word. It encompasses all of it. And this is a question, actually, I was talking to Linda Pettit about this yesterday. Why do you think there are so few women in our, basically in the spiritual community, who are actually out there, as many men as there are, because we have so many men teachers, but very few women who are really out in the spotlight?
That's a good point. Well, I think that's a reflection of societal conditioning and how we, as women, have a tendency to internalize that conditioning and feel like somehow we need to be better than before we're willing to actually share or do or be seen. And I think that there is different conditioning. Not everybody internalizes it the same way. But my sense is, in my experience of working with a lot of women and my experience of being a woman, is that we can be more vulnerable to feeling like we need to be better in order to do something. And I know I've read research where if there's a job opening, that men will have something like 65% of the skills and feel great about applying for that job. And women will have 95% of the skills and think, no, I can't apply for it because I'm missing those 5%. So I think that that's a reflection of our cultural conditioning that gets in the way of us really trusting ourselves and stepping forward. And it's, it's not easy to be stepping forward. There's criticism that comes our way. There's judgment. I mean, there's a lot of things that come your way if you're willing to speak up. And sometimes I think it's probably not appealing to people as well, and that's okay too. It's not that everybody needs to, but I certainly want to encourage everyone to feel the value of their wisdom and see the benefit of sharing their wisdom with the world, whether that be more women, whether that be more people of different identities that are marginalized in different ways. I think that there's a lot of encouragement and support needed and mentors to help that process.
Well, it's interesting because I do a writing course. I know you know Jules Wales.
Yes, I've done that. I've done some of those writing courses.
Yeah, I think we're all into it at one stage or another. I'm still hanging in. I love it.
Yeah.
And the fascinating thing is most of the people on those courses are women. There are very few guys that are there. So there is obviously, and I don't know this, but are there more women writers there because we're all searching for a voice?
I don't know. I mean, I know that the teacher attracts the people that are drawn to them because I've done other writing classes with male teachers and there's more men in those classes. So
interesting.
Right?
Yeah. So your writing, did it come into, have you always written? Or was this just something that emerged as you came kind of into this understanding that, and as part of your business? Or was it something that you that was always waiting there to be nourished, given space to?
I think it's something that I've always had inspiration from, even as a child, I enjoyed creative writing. That was something that brought me pleasure when I wasn't judging myself, right? That I would have a lot of self-criticism and judgment come up, but there was always a spark there. So it's something that's been close to my heart for a long, long time. And then when I went into the academic world, it was hard to write academically, like writing my master's thesis and doing writing that way. And it just wasn't very, I mean, there was a certain amount of pleasure, but it wasn't that much fun. And so I think I lost the joy of writing because of all of the academic rules and rigor that you have to put into it. And so I don't think I did very much writing for myself after I completed my master's. And then I've always been a prolific reader. I love reading. And so I probably just put all of that energy into just enjoying other people's writing. And then at some point, I don't really remember when it was, but I think it was when people started writing blog posts, and I can't remember. I started a WordPress blog like maybe in 2000, something like that. And it was a start, but I didn't maintain it. There was something where I think it felt probably too vulnerable at the time. And and we had young, I think it was probably, I don't know the exact years, but it was probably when we had young children. And so there just was a different pace of life back at that point. And so then, but the inspiration was there, even though I wasn't doing it. So it was always something that I thought was a great way for self-exploration and deepening of connection with self. Like I really find the gift in writing is to have a deeper connection with who you are and to discover things that you didn't really see that way before. So I love that. And then I think I was at a graduation talk for the University of Santa Monica, where I was on faculty at the time. And the graduation speaker was Arianna Huffington, and she had the Huffington Post at that point. And she was basically saying to the graduates of this program, we need more people who understand spiritual psychology in the world speaking out. If you want to share your writing on the Huffington Post platform, email me and we'll go from there. And so I thought, well, I'm going to email her and see what happens. And it was one of those things where I just felt like it was just like it hit me. Like it wasn't, oh, that's a nice idea. Like it's like, oh, something's being said here. And so I emailed her probably the next day, and she emailed me back. She said, yeah, absolutely. You can set up your platform with this person. And so that gave me the opportunity to share my writing there. And there was something I felt called forward at that point. I don't know what it was. I don't know why it happened at that point. But as soon as I had that opportunity, I started writing weekly, or I write more than weekly, but I started putting something out weekly. I didn't have a website, didn't have a mailing list. I was just wanting to share with others what I was seeing. And so that was a shift inside of myself. And I write for myself. I write because I feel like it's helpful to me, and I hope it's of service to others. But really, I do it for me because of the way that I feel like it deepens understanding, the exploration, the creativity. So that's the joy of it for me. And then I think because, at a certain point, I started to get feedback from people that it was helpful. And so I think that encourages me to continue to share what I write with others in support of them too.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, it was right at the end of your course that you shared a David Bowie talk.
Oh, yes.
Where he said, don't play to the audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's basically what you're saying about your writing.
Yeah. 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 And I will answer questions sometimes. So in a sense, someone will ask a question, I'll feel like, okay, this is a great question to answer in a blog post. But yeah, you're right that for the most part, I want to be connecting more deeply with myself. And it's probably going to feel uncomfortable to think about sharing that with anybody else. And so I don't want to think about that. I want to just stay true to what seems to be emerging inside of me and not think about who's going to be reading it or who's going to see it.
But we're never going to know any of that anyway, are we?
Exactly. So I try and stay out of that perspective.
I mean, I know for myself in my writing that, I mean, I describe it as me coaching me, and I don't mean me, the deeper sense of what I am coaching.
Yeah.
That it is so revelatory that the insights that have come from it, the seeing of, oh my gosh, I literally did not see that before this moment.
Yeah.
Is
powerful.
Absolutely something I never expected because like you, I loved writing at school, English, literature, favorite subject.
Yeah.
And then would occasionally think, oh, I should journal.
Right.
And then write for 3 days and go, oh, okay, I'm over that.
Yeah.
But it took a very specific moment with, actually Linda Pettit did a course called I'm Speaking, which was about finding your voice. And from there, signing up with Jules. And I, again, looked at Jules a year before. It hadn't been the right time. It just hadn't gelled. But then, yes, all of a sudden that moment comes.
Yeah.
Because of whatever's had to weave its way in the background to, you know, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've kind of woken up in the morning and gone, oh, apparently I'm doing this next.
Yeah, that inspiration, when it hits, you want to run with it.
Yeah, which is actually where these interviews came from.
Oh, I love that.
All of a sudden, it was just a case of, oh, I'm doing that now.
Yeah. I love that. And to me, that's really being willing to trust the internal promptings and see where they take you without having to know ahead of time what it's going to look like, if it's going to go anywhere, and just to see where that creative spark invites you to explore and have fun along the way.
Well, of course, the minute we think I mean, I know when I've woken up with those moments, a bit like you in the Huffington Post, there is no resistance to it. And they have such a different feel to, okay, today I am going to sort out doing a podcast.
Yes, exactly. There's a different, one's coming from the intellect, often as I should do this, is the right thing to do, versus, oh, this is what wants to come through me. Okay, let me see what happens. And I want to also say that when I finally, wrote my first blog post and pressed publish or whatever I had to do at the time, I was so anxious. I literally had eczema or some kind of skin reaction because of the level of anxiety and shame. Like I had such a strong response. And it's the first blog post. Probably nobody ever read it. I don't even know if anyone's read that blog post. But my internal reaction was, it was like there was the inner prompting, and then there was all of my conditioning, all of my shame, all of my insecurity that just, I had to meet it. But I knew that I still wanted to do it. And so I did. But it wasn't comfortable. And it took me a long time. I don't know for how long Angus did this for me, but for a long time, I would have Angus read every single post that I wrote before I pressed publish so that he could at least say, yes, go ahead on that, because it was so hard. It was just so hard for me to do. I had so much self-consciousness. It was really uncomfortable. But that discomfort was not something that I was interested in. I was more interested in what wanted to get expressed in that creativity. And so even though it took a long time for me to get over myself in that way and be less self-conscious, I'm still self-conscious, but less self-conscious. Angus doesn't read everything I write anymore. that lucky guy. So if I'm writing about him, I'll say, hey, do you want to look at this piece? Because I'm talking about you in it. So I do give him that. But to be able to just sort of really get on grip from that thinking, it took me a long time. but it was worth it. And the freedom is is fun. The freedom is worth it. And so whatever it takes, I would encourage anyone to do whatever it takes to get ungripped from that conditioning that holds us back, that keeps us small, that says we're not good enough,
Mm.
that, all of that noise of self-criticism, and to stay with that love and that creative spark that's inside of you and just go for it. And the doing of it, in my experience, is what allows the confidence to get built. It's what allows more
Mm.
to be revealed. It's not something that I could have figured out ahead of time. Like, I couldn't have thought my way into not being self-conscious. I had to write my, I don't know, 500 posts. I don't know. I wish I knew which one it was, but I'm like, I'm free. But I had to keep doing it. And occasionally there's something where I'll choose to share something and I will feel self-conscious even now sharing it. And often those are the posts where I get the most feedback saying thank you for being willing to share about that. And so I trust that speaking to the human condition from the vantage point that I see it with as much openness, vulnerability, and honesty as I can is not just good for me, that it's also hopefully encouraging others to feel that freedom and do that for themselves too.
And it's when you say about, well, there were two things that actually,
Mhm.
because I can't, I mean, I look at you and I see a confident woman. And I don't know when you started writing, but do you think everybody else would have looked at you and gone, oh, there's a confident woman?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I was probably writing about my insecurity at that point in time. So I don't think they would have perhaps thought that because I was telling them that I wasn't feeling that. But they might have thought, wow, I never would have known that about her. Right.
Isn't it
If they
so
had seen me.
interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that could be very true. Like students that I, was working with at the faculty, at the university, like they probably wouldn't have thought that. So yeah,
Mm.
we can have this presentation, but that doesn't say anything about what we're experiencing inside. And not because I was trying to hide it, but because actually most of the time I was confident and not caught up in insecurity. It's just those times when we're caught up in insecurity, it can feel so intense that it sort of takes
Oh,
up a
yeah.
lot of our bandwidth, enough so for me to come out in a rash, whatever it was. But yeah, if we really think about it, I mean, because I would have said that I had quite a lot of shyness, self-consciousness, but most of the time I wasn't feeling that way, even though I would have labeled myself with those qualities at that point.
Mm. Well, I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but we said, what did they say? Oh, that was a terrible 6 months. And
Mm,
then kind of as we sat there, I went, actually, how
yeah,
could that be true?
yeah.
It wasn't. Actually, there were the most amazing bits of this and the most amazing bits of that.
Hmm.
But we focus so much on that negative bit
Yeah,
that it
yeah,
looks like that whole 6 months is crap
yeah,
until you kind of sit back and go, oh, well, actually, was that true?
yeah, yeah. I know, it's
We,
amazing.
we wipe off time.
Yeah,
And of
and we
course, I've now forgotten the other thing that I was going to ask you.
and that's okay. That's
That's
okay.
still okay. Because there isn't another option until it comes back. So, working with Angus,
Mhm.
I find, I mean, obviously you're married. I couldn't quite imagine working with my husband. That's probably because he thinks I'm potty, but that's cool. And has it helped your relationship? As this flows through you? Because I mean, I know when I sit in presence with someone, and I was talking to someone the other day when she said to me, she said, I want to give myself more to my husband. And
Mm.
it was an interesting kind of idea of giving herself more.
Mm.
And what kind of came out of it was the only way we can give ourselves more is actually being present with the person we're with.
Right, yeah. Yeah, to show up in our own vulnerability and openness. Yeah. Well, yeah, working with Angus is quite a surprise, really. That was not something that we had ever imagined doing, thought about, planned for. But what happened was when I came across the understanding of the principles, the teachings of Sydney Banks, I was really impacted. I mentioned that time where, I had a different relationship with my insecurity and anxiety. And so what happened is my anxiety levels went significantly down. I had not realized how much pressure and stress I had been living in. I had thought that that was just life and that life
Mm.
was stressful, but I didn't realize that actually now my whole thinking was what was stressful. And that was where my experience was coming from. And so as that settled down, all areas of my life got impacted by that. But one of the areas that was such a blessing and gift is that our relationship got so much better. And it wasn't that it was really struggling at that point. When I look back now, I think I had resigned myself to sort of the level of intimacy that we had, and that we had more of a parallel life experience, and it was workable. And I wasn't planning on not being with him, even though I had at some point planned that and realized that that wasn't what I really wanted. And so I thought, oh, well, this is going to be good enough. But then when I had that decrease in anxiety and insecurity within myself, it really changed how I related to him. And I didn't see previously how judgmental and critical I had been. Like, it was really a blind spot. It was something that was fairly subtle in some ways, but he was also attuned to it. So it doesn't really matter that I wasn't yelling at him and criticizing every day. But there was that undercurrent there. And so when that shifted within me, it shifted our relationship significantly. And he became different. He became much less irritable, angry, reactive. And so it just opened up a whole different level of depth of intimacy, closeness, enjoyment of each other. It was amazing. It was like falling in love in an even deeper way. Like in the honeymoon period, you don't really know each other. This was like falling in love when we really knew each other, which was incredible.
Mm.
And so that, I think, is what I can't really remember sort of when I said we should work with couples or how it actually came about. But I think it was inspired by the shift that we felt within ourselves and our relationship, and how much we had struggled, even though we weren't struggling significantly at that point in time. We had struggled significantly in our relationship previously, and we had tried so many different things. And, we patched things up in a way, but we didn't get to that place that we were at. And so we just really wanted to be of support and work with couples that were struggling in the ways that we had struggled, and we could see how this understanding would be so beneficial. And so that's how we joined forces working with couples. And because of the way we work with couples, it's not all joint sessions. And so we have the opportunity to each work individually with one part of the couple and then come together and do joint sessions. So it's really nice to have a partner to do that work with, because we each have our own individual practices, and then we do the couples work as a team. And I love working with Angus. Like, it's so much fun. I think I probably love working with him more than he loves working with me. I don't know. But I just think that the way that he thinks, his point of view, his depth of spiritual understanding, connection, I just love all of the qualities that he brings, and it's very different than what I bring to the table. And so there's a beautiful synergy. And I do think, like your question, has it helped our relationship? I do think that we have to walk our talk, right? It's like, we are living this understanding in our relationship, and we are deepening our capacity to open our hearts to each other, to understand each other, to love each other daily as a result of that. It doesn't mean that every day is a great day. It doesn't mean that we get along every day even, but that we enjoy what gets opened up inside of us as we wake up more fully to the truth of who we are, and to seeing how that can get expressed more in our lives, including in our relationship with each other. And just feels like a really beautiful gift to share that with him.
Well, I mean, it strikes me that how wonderful that both of you followed this path together.
Mm.
Something that you would have never expected. You wouldn't have
Yeah.
even, nowhere on the radar.
Mm-hmm.
But just being open to the possibility of where life may take you as a couple.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of it was that I was absolutely okay if he never joined me on this journey, because I had asked him to do everything else with me. Any other thing that I had gone on, any other bandwagon, as he would say, like, I'm like, come and do this with me. And I'm like, he's tired. He doesn't want to do any more things with me. So I was quite fine that it would be something that he didn't ever show any interest in, because I didn't need him to. And that, I think, was a huge shift inside of me, where I was able to
That's really
see
interesting, as you
I
say,
didn't
you
need him
didn't
to.
need it. You had a sense of this is your journey.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
anybody else does became irrelevant, because, like you, I mean, I've taken my husband along to Joe Dispenza days, and he sat there and gone, what the hell am I doing here? I've taken him to dousing days.
Right.
Taken him to all sorts of stuff, like you.
Yes, exactly.
And it's interesting because, again, I see this time there are phases where I've gone, oh, yes, he needs to know this. And that has only ever caused resistance.
Yes.
But in the course of conversations, he's had huge insights.
Absolutely.
That when,
Because that's how we're designed, right? That is how we are designed. It doesn't matter what we read or what we know. Like, that is how we are made, to awaken in consciousness. So that's what's happening for all of us.
And the world seems rather a very unsettled place at the moment. Obviously, in Iran, there are women for the first time truly coming out and saying, this is not how we want to live our lives. We shouldn't have to wear a hijab. And this is not a religious thing. This is actually, what anybody ever decides to do is up to them. But I wonder whether it is time for women to step out into themselves, because we've lived in a very male-dominated society for so long, and it's not doing too well. So we, as sharers of this understanding, it can heal a world.
Yeah, there's so much healing that happens through awakening and consciousness on a personal level that then ripples out into families, communities, cities, cultures. And that tipping point, when there are more and more people realizing who they are, recognizing the nature of love and the expression of love, that's going to change things. And that I think whoever is able to realize that for themselves, feel the benefits of that, and then speak to that, is going to be a contribution in terms of supporting others. And the more, the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. And that I think that one of the ways that I look at it in terms of the masculine and the feminine is that we all have the divine masculine and the divine feminine within us.
Yeah.
And that the divine feminine has perhaps not been really allowed to flourish and express whatever gender identity you may have, just because of the cultural conditioning. And that it's time to really respect what's on offer there, because it's beautiful and it's balancing, and that it's not that one is better than the other, but they deserve equal expression and the fluidity of that expression rather than to have one respected and the other not.
That is so true.
Mm-hmm.
So true. Because without yin and yang, without dark and light, without all of these things, you need the reflection of both sides.
Mm-hmm.
You bring balance in the middle, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's all valuable.
Mm. I wonder where it'll all go. Won't it be fascinating to watch it unfold?
Yeah. We'll see, right? We'll see.
Maybe we should just drop a lot of Sid's books all over the world.
Yes, just get helicopter drops everywhere.
Exactly. Well, these days we don't even need helicopters. I'm sure we can do it droneless or something.
That's right.
We can do it peopleless. Maybe we can do it on an energetic level.
Yeah. And I think we do. I think that as we connect more deeply with the feeling of who we are, the knowing of who we are, that ripples out from us, that it's the individual awakening that is communicated in all kinds of ways, in ways that I'm sure I don't understand.
Well, I mean, this creative force, it seems to me, will use any way possible to show itself, to release us from what we think we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I do mean any sort of way that is possible that I've experienced. And I'm only one little person in the whole scheme of this. So the possibilities for revelation must be never ending.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really wonderful too.
It's really hopeful. It's really hopeful. And I think the simplicity of recognizing that we all have the wisdom within us and that we can trust that wisdom is a strong invitation for everyone to listen to that inner guidance and to follow those heartfelt dreams in whatever way they want to be expressed, and to take the next steps and to take the action and to listen. And I think that is not only transformative for the individual, but I also think it's transformative for society.
And it could do with it. Thank you, Rohini.
Oh,
You are
thank you
so
much.
beautiful.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love speaking with you, and it's so great. I'm so glad that you had a wonderful time over the summer. And that was such, the Rewilding Your Practice program was so much fun. Like I was surprised by
I was about to say,
did
you experience something? I mean, we as partakers in it saw so much has come out of that. Did you?
Yeah. For me, what was really interesting is that the way that I showed up in that program felt so comfortable and real and so much fun. Like, I don't know that I have felt that level of freedom in that kind of format before. And so it was just really interesting to see the energy that we were all in, and that what it was inviting us to step into. And it was very much a co-created experience. And then I think we were all impacted by the feeling of love and support and inspiration. And I got swept up in that too. I got swept up, and I'm like, wow, I have to do this again next year, because clearly this is a good thing. Like, who knows if it's going to be the same? But it's like, wow, I had no idea. I had no idea that it was going to be.
Is that the first time you've had so many people that you've done that kind of format? I mean, I think you had about 150 people or something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've done bigger programs before, or I think the last one, the Rewilding experience I did with Angus was a bigger program, but there was something about how I showed up in that program. And I think when I was thinking about it, I was really looking at how do I support the mentor guides that have just graduated from, their second year of the guide training, and what's a way that I can support them with getting more experience and confidence sharing their work in the world. And so that was the framework that I thought, oh, I can create a series of webinars that highlights the guides, that gives them the experience. And then as I dropped into that more, I thought, well, why don't I create a 6-week program, and it can all be about rewilding your practice. And so it just sort of took on a life of its own. And then the people that showed up, the willingness, the vulnerability, the openness, like that, I think is what blew me away. It was how everyone else showed up that was so inspiring. And to witness the transformations and to hear people say, oh, this is the first time I'm doing this. I haven't done this before. I've been thinking about this, but now I've done it. Like, I was like, wow, this container is really supporting people with stepping out of their comfort zone and listening to their hearts and acting on it. And I mean, that was just so much fun to witness, so inspiring to be a part of. And it was what we created together. If people were like, not participating, it wouldn't have been a good thing. It would have been like not fun.
Oh no, and there was so many people who went, I've never recorded myself and put it out in the world. And these were coaches, whatever it may have been, all sorts of people that fear of just turning a camera on and sitting like this was so huge.
Yeah.
But of course, you, like your post in the Huffington Post, it just took a moment to let life live through us.
Exactly.
And our whole experience change.
Yeah. And then we get to live in alignment with what that intelligence within us that wants to express through us, that is us and is also everyone, that source, the one source that we're all an expression of, that wants to get expressed through us. And it's like trusting that rather than our conditioning, our insecure thinking, like trusting that creative spark inside of ourselves, honoring that and living in alignment with that. And I think what was so important was that there was a safe container to do that, where everybody was supported and felt the love coming their way. And that's what makes it so much easier to not listen to the noise of the mind and to feel like we're not in it alone. I think so often we feel like we're in our insecurity and our anxiety by ourselves, and that we can get so overwhelmed by how loud it gets in our own mind. But when we have a reflection toward us that is so different than that noise, it creates a cognitive dissonance, and it starts creating those cracks in the condition. Is like, can I wait, what can I trust here? And to then just see and witness other people having the experience of that freedom, it's like, yeah, I want to jump in that water too. Okay, I'm going for it. So it's a beautiful cascade. And I think that we can all support each other as much as the awakening is the inner awakening of understanding who we are within ourselves. I think we can love and support each other and hold each other's hands as we are on that journey, because it is not a journey for the faint of heart. It can be very challenging on the emotional, psychological, mental levels. And so to have support and the support of community, the support of each other is so powerful. And so I think it's the inner and the outer that allows us to be in the experience in a new way, that it's not one or the other. And if we choose one or the other, that's fine. But when we have both together, for me, that's when it's most fun.
And it's the really big thing, as you say there, is feeling that safe space, because of course we spend so much of life when we think we need fixing, when we think everything's wrong, when whatever, feeling unsafe. So being vulnerable when that is where you're working from is terrifying.
Yeah, it can be, absolutely. Yeah. And to know that there is so much love being shared in the world. There is so much understanding there. And can we create community and really look for that so that we are supported in our lives in ways that make a difference, and to not feel like we have to try and do it all ourselves.
And that's huge, because I mean, we say kind of in a really blasé way, we're all one.
Mm,
We are. So
yeah.
actually, we are all in this together.
Hmm. Yeah. Whether we realize it or not, whether it feels that way or not,
Yeah.
that's the truth of it all.
Mm,
Mm.
simple. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for spending this time with me.